The second.
Take, okay, this is live, no takes. Welcome everybody. This is day 2 of the Thank You Plant Medicine Ouroboros Story Hour storytelling session at the first ever World of Wisdom in Gotland, Sweden. So I'm your host and producer, Bob Cohen. I'm a dad, writer, teacher, and bluesman. When I'm not stuck at home playing hide and seek with COVID-19 and doom scrolling about the end of Western civilization, I'm teaching writing and literature and working on a memoir about the convergence of clogged arteries, financial catastrophe, trauma, psychedelics, and what I've recently been told is late middle age, not middle age. So a few words about photography and recording. This is being broadcast on Zoom and Facebook Live, and I plan to record the event. So if you're camera shy and joining us on Zoom, please turn off your video feed, and that way you can be anonymous if that's something that you need. So to storytellers, remember, no video conferencing platform is truly secure, including the ones that say that they are encrypted. Please avoid mentioning incriminating details that could result in identifying friends, locations, medicine workers, or organizers of ceremonies in jurisdictions in which plant medicines and psychedelics are considered illegal. So in other words, if you're talking about Iquitos or Brazil or Portugal, give all the details you want, but in other places, just be mindful of how your words can affect others. World of Wisdom is a simple framework of 10 guiding principles for welcoming personal, local, and global challenges using playfulness and co-creation. It combines timeless wisdoms, modern knowledge, and human creativity. World of Wisdom is more than festivals or retreats. It's an experiment in human development, a place for all of us to explore, grow, heal, connect, experiment, play, and co-create. And that's exactly what we're doing today, is we're going to co-create a moment. One of the things I really work hard to do with when I host storytelling sessions like this is to dissolve the boundaries between the storyteller and the witnesses so that we together form a thing. So thank you, plant medicine. The Thank You Plant Medicine movement is a diverse global collective of individuals, groups, and organizations united by a deep gratitude and appreciation for psychoactive plant medicines and psychedelics. And Thank You Plant Medicine's, I almost said the F word. Thank you. The organizer is here with us, Jonathan Glazer. So Ouroboros Story Hour is a multi-city, monthly live unscripted storytelling production. Our mission is to promote deep personal and societal healing and radical acceptance of ourselves and others by sharing and witnessing stories about experiences with teaching plants, psychedelics, and other consciousness hacking practices. So our primary focus here is on psychedelics and entheogens, but I really think that I have a very, very broad understanding of what psychedelic and entheogen means. And so I welcome people to share stories about anything that any tool that they use to shift their consciousness so that they can look inside and then figure out where they fit in the world. Our storytellers, here we go. Ouroboros Story Hour presents people with stories to share and experiences to integrate. Our storytellers are seldom intentional performers. I really look to find people with real stories rather than highly polished performers. So I always begin every session with a few reminders. This is a share, not a show. So we're co-creating unique moments. The stories here and the views expressed belong to the people who share them. So in other words, TYPM, Ouroboros Story Hour, and World of Wisdom aren't necessarily responsible for what people say. This is something that I always talk about in live spaces. It's less of an issue here, but I do seek to make Story Hour a substance-free event. So please refrain from bringing, distributing, or selling any substances during the event. And then for folks who are not experienced with entheogenic substances or psychedelics, try to remember that you're going to hear some amazing stories here, but these are, and the medicines are safe, but they're also very powerful. So it's possible that you can make things worse as you're trying to figure out how to make things better, providing that you, so stop there. So make sure you do your research, make sure you understand the medicines that you're taking, make sure that you do them with people who will keep you safe. And there are a lot of situations that aren't safe. So just kind of keep that in mind. Remember, be responsible, be a good steward of yourself and the people around you. Today, we are going to have 4 speakers: Mayana de Agueda, Alejandro Martinez, Navi Griwal, did I say it right?
Yeah.
And Faisal Katak. So those are our storytellers for today. And I usually start these out with a story myself because nobody likes to be first. So I'm going to start out. So this is a story that I told about. This is a story I told a while back. So it begins like this. Does anybody know where I can score LSD or MDMA or get to an ayahuasca ceremony? So in a live space, people go, that shocks people, right? So I asked that question because I came into psychedelics very late in life. So I've been doing this for about 5 years. So I was 58. So what I like to, my standard joke about this is, when you're in your 20, when you're under, say 21 or 2 or 3, drug dealers. You get a little older, you're sort of like getting into adult life. You might still know some people who know people who deal drugs. Then you get to that stage in life where those connections don't exist anymore. And so what happens when you feel called to take this medicine? So for me, that call to take the medicine was around a lot of trauma and a big financial catastrophe in my life. And it made me severely depressed and suicidal. And there was a point where I literally was in my garage on a ladder with a rope around my neck. And the only reason why I didn't kick the ladder out from under me was because I didn't want my kids to come home from school and find me. So that was sort of this break moment. It was like, fuck, I got to do something about this. What am I going to do? And as it happens, around that time, I'd read a couple of articles in the mainstream press about the potential benefits of using psilocybin to cure depression. So I'm coming at this like from a strictly allopathic model. It's like, the psych meds that the doctors are giving me weren't working. Talk therapy wasn't working. It was just, I need this. I need something. I'm desperate. I have to fix this shit. So now what the hell do I do? Right? There's no. I can't ring up my friend over, 3 dorm buildings over and go, yo, I heard that you sell mushrooms. Can you hook me up? So I did what any self-respecting researcher, writer, or college professor type would do. I started doing lots of research, and I started reading the medical journals, and I started looking for everything and anything I could find in the popular press. And I ran across a conference based in New York called Horizons: Perspectives on Psychedelics. So that was in the fall of 2014. And I said, all right, I guess I'll go to this. So one of the things I didn't say, and one of the reasons why I was so severely depressed, was that my wife was the CEO of a company and I was a stay-at-home dad. And the president of the board of directors assaulted her, and she blew the whistle. And you can imagine what happened next. She lost her job because they circled the wagons around. They circled the wagons around the president of the board. So we had a severe disruption in our income. So we're living this 6-figure life. We got the house, the kids, and all these things. And suddenly, we're trying to scrape by on unemployment with the hope that, maybe we could sue these people. So it was really a very grim time for us. We fell behind on mortgage. There were points where I was literally looking at bags of potato chips and figuring out how I could get a half ounce more of chips for the same amount of money. So it was like that level of, that level of disruption and that level of trauma. And, you fall into these things. And so, my wife's severely depressed. She's not doing well. Um, as a educated but stay-at-home dad, it's hard to jump into the labor force after being out for 15 years. So I'm like, what do I do? How do I help? How do I step in and take care of this? And it's just like the whole world just kind of like collapsed in. So I had no money, but I am from New York. So I called, I rung up my mom. She lives out on Long Island, and I said, can I, can I stay at, can I stay at your house? And then I'll take the train into the city a couple of days for the conference. And so I was like, yeah, okay, sure. So I spend money I don't have to drive down to New York, and I spend money that I don't have to pay for the conference, to pay for the conference. And so I at that time, Horizons has gone big biz in the last couple of years. At that time, it was still relatively small. So they had really very generous, they had a very generous sliding scale, but even still, it was lots of dough for me, but it just sort of all worked. So I find myself getting into the space, and at that time, it was all pretty strictly hardcore science stuff. But I was like, well, surely everyone around here takes psychedelics. I'll find somebody, right? I'm an affable fellow. Someone will trust me and sell me some shrooms. So I go around and I'm talking to people, and I'm kind of like pretty desperate. And you see I have I have like a military style haircut, and so everybody kind of like held me at arm's length. It was like, oh yeah, I do, but I don't know. And I wasn't really sure why, because in those states of mind, it's kind of hard to pick up on all the social cues, because I'm just sort of like living in my trauma, and I'm not kind of like connecting dots. So part the way into the Saturday program, the NYU team was giving a talk about their end of life studies, the end of life study that they had done sort of the couple of years before that. And we get to the Q&A section of the presentation. So I stand up, and I'm a cheeky bastard. So I go, I got a question for you. And then I kind of laid it out where I said, you're doing studies for end of life, you're doing studies for veterans, you're doing studies for this. I said, when are you going to start doing studies for garden variety suicidal people like me? And then I paused, because I know how to work a room, and I go, I'm not asking where I can score drugs, but can you help a brother out? So of course I got the right, I got the desired laugh in the room. And then their answer was harumph. Only it's hard to get approval for these things. This is only so many experts, only so much time. You're going to have to wait and suffer. They didn't say the suffer part, but that's the effect of it. You're just going to have to wait. So I'm like, oh fuck, now what? So now obviously you can say fuck. So anyway, I'm like, what am I going to do? So I get through the end of the day, and I'm still trying to work the room, and still trying to get people to sell me mushrooms, and no soap. But at the very end of the day, as the conference was closing out, this woman came up to me, and she's about my age. I think maybe like a little bit older, like 3 or 4 years older than me. And it's really, I find this really amazing with certain people. They see through your bullshit. So she saw me with my cheekiness and my desperation and the whole bit. Like, she saw the whole package. She goes, I was where you are. I know a guy. I said, but I wanted to meet you first, and then I want to, and then I'll connect you with him, providing everything feels okay. So we exchanged cards, and I actually think of I have authorization to say her name. Her name's Mary Kay. Mary Kay is the first angel in my medicine journey, because she really saw who I was. And so I kind of passed it out, and I had no real hope that anything was going to come of it. But the next day, we would do the Sunday program. So we moved from the Judson Memorial Church in Greenwich Village to the new school, to this huge, shiny auditorium, because the second day program was a little bit bigger. And we went through the day, and I didn't see Mary Kay all day. But then she came up to me at the end of the second day, and she said, "I talked to my friend. Here's their I'm going to use they singular. Here's their address. Here's their email address." And then she gave me the secret password to put in the email so that they would know what this was all about. So I send off the email. I hear back from them, and they live, and this is okay to do too, because it's New York City. They live in the Upper West Side. So good luck using that as a way to find a person. So they live in the Upper West Side, and they said, I can do this. You can come here, but we have a network of folks, and I know someone who's closer to you in a big city somewhere between Boston and New York. Here's their email address. So I connect to this person. So while this is going on, this is sort of when I'm like getting ready I've been constructing the galas in my mind while this is all going on. I'm older now, but I used to rock climb, so I know how to tie knots, and I know how to devise systems. And I literally devised the gallows because when you rock climb, like, you need to pay attention to the direction that ropes travel when you put weight on them. So I knew how to make it so that when I drop, it would go straight down. So I have this whole thing constructed in my mind. I got really bad. I ended up having to check into a partial inpatient program for depression, where I kept on asking them about psychedelics, and they used that as evidence that I was unwell because I wanted to take drugs. And I said, but I have all of these, all these papers, and I went printed out PDFs with the, with all the medicine that was available at the time, and they're like, "Oh yes, okay, sure, yeah, no, we don't do that. You want some Paxil, you want some Prozac, you want some, you want some Zoloft. We got, we'll give you some benzos. And I'm like, I'm not taking that shit. It makes me sick. But, and so as I ended up being in the program for about 2 weeks, and the only reason that they actually didn't commit me was because they knew that I had a family at home, and I had to promise to get a new therapist. So I did, and I've actually been working with her since 2014. It's been an amazing ride. So anyway, the person that I was to connect with in the city between Boston and New York was a younger person, and I think that I probably overwhelmed her with where I was in my life. And we talk about set and setting, so I think she viewed my mindset as it's not conducive to taking taking mushrooms at an amazing ride this time. So anyway, the person that thank you, John, connect with in this between Boston and New York. John, can you turn off the sound on the Facebook thing? Because just so you know, the Facebook is on a delay. So things I'm saying now turn up like 7-8 minutes later. So anyway, thank you. So that person got a little nervous about working with me. So they bounced me back to the person in New York. So it was agreed that on a cold December day, on a snowy January day in 2015, I got invited to go to this person's pre-war, beautiful classic 6 pre-war apartment in the Upper West Side with marble fireplaces and wood floors, and it was like, holy shit! Like, if I ever living in New York, that's like where I would want to live. It was just Riverview, the whole bit, just gorgeous. So I go there, and I take the medicine, and I went in saying, because the person, the other person I was dealing with said they wanted to dose me with 7 grams, because they said, we're not fooling around here. Let's just get used to 7 grams is the magic number. It'll get you really deep and you'll have a great old time. So I talked to the person in New York, and there you go. I blew it. So he's older than me. He was probably he's like in his 70s, very well-known, highly respected trip sitter. He looks at me and he goes, he shook his head. He goes, you don't need that much. 2.5 grams will be more than enough. So I go, all right. I was kind of disappointed because I wanted to go all the way out into outer space. So I take the 2.5 grams and I got stuck in a loop. So dreams come true. He says, you seem to be stuck. You want a little more? I'm like, yeah, okay. So I ended up taking 5 grams on that first on that first trip, and it was just extraordinary. When we get in these kind of traumatized spaces, it's hard to see all the parts of what has, of what like makes us be in that mental space. So my mind is all focused on this recent immediate trauma, which is a financial disruption, trying to keep my kids from feeling afraid, and trying to support my wife as she's dealing with a really traumatic experience. And I'm not understanding that there's a lot of other things going on. So in this process with that first trip experience that I had, I actually regressed to infancy. And I went back. So my parents, they got married when they were 20 and 18. So they weren't, it was a shotgun wedding and they weren't really ready for it. So they were pretty neglectful. So my dad was a New York cop and my mom she was pretty checked out. I don't know whether they loved each other ever or it just wasn't a good, so she used to leave me alone a lot. And I didn't realize that was something that sort of like fed into my own psychological pathology. And so as I regressed back and to like fresh out of the hospital infant, I loved myself. Like I gave myself back that feeling, the touch and the love and affection that every baby deserves and every baby needs. And indeed, and this is another thing I never understood. So my kids are 24 and 20, and their feet literally never touched the ground until they were about 2 years old. I picked them up, I held them close to me all of the time. I got tendonitis in my left arm because when they started getting big, I would never put them down. I just wanted them really close. I wanted them to have this this deep love and affection, so they could feel my heart and they know that they were loved and they were cared for. And so I had this in the process of having this first mushroom experience. I gave that stuff back to myself. I gave that back to myself, and then a little bit later in life, so 8, 9, 10, I actually was a bedwetter, and my parents were not they weren't woke, as I guess the word we use now. So their way of getting me to stop doing it was to send me to school with soiled underwear, so that people would ridicule me and I would stop. And I didn't know that I'd long since put that out of my mind. I stopped thinking about that, because it's how many years ago. And I did this whole ritual where I literally poured water down my chest and my pants and then changed. And so when I came out of that, when I came out of that, when I sort of finished the mushroom arc, I had this sense of relief and release that was palpable, that probably would have taken a Freudian analyst 10 years to maybe get to, and it all happened, bam, in an afternoon with mushrooms. And there is subsequently I've had a lot of experiences, and I now use medicine as a practice, and sometimes I do, but mostly I don't get those big sort of chunks of relief and release, and the cosmic surgeons don't come to visit me anymore. So, but in that, the things that happened they were permanent shifts. Like those things are gone from they're gone from my psyche, except as memories. I mean, it's not that they didn't happen. Obviously, you know they happen because I'm telling you, but they don't affect me in the same way. And that told me right then and there, I said, this is the path that I need to follow. This is like this shit's for real. And fuck the doctors, because they don't know what they're talking about. So I'm gonna end in a second. So I want to kind of like tie I want to tie things to where I started, which was, does anybody know where I can score? I've been to every single Horizons conference since then. So I'm going this year will be my 7th. I did eventually make friends, and after my 3rd year, I got invited to the cool after party in Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn. So here I am, almost 60 years old, hanging out with the 30 somethings. And actually, I have permission to mention his name too. So it was a fellow named Lex Pelger, who used to be involved with an organization called Symposium. So Lex invited me back to his apartment in Bed-Stuy. And so I'm talking to his roommate, and I related the story about, can you help a brother out? And she looked at me and she goes, "That was you? We all thought you were a narc." And so I said, "Yeah, no." And then she said, "Lex, come here. He was the guy." So I reconnected with Lex, and he goes, "I do a storytelling thing here in Brooklyn. You got to come down and tell this story." So I'd never done unscripted storytelling before that. So I was like, "Well, okay." I said, "Can I couch surf in your place?" And he goes, "Yeah." So that's where Story Hour started. So a month later, I'm back in Lex's apartment in Bed-Stuy, going to a venue in Brooklyn called, the hipster capital of the world, called Hellphone, sharing the story. And as it happened, someone was doing a documentary about Lex's work, and then I ended up having that recorded, and it's part of that documentary. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And now we will move on to our other storytellers.
Bob.
Yep.
Can we ask questions quickly?
Oh yeah, sure. You can ask questions.
Okay. I really wonder if this ideation of suicide came after your experience with mushrooms again, ever.
No. No, not at all. I mean, it's not that. I mean, obviously, things were really bad, and so the road, the road forward was very rocky, but not at all. I mean, sometimes I get tired, and instead of wanting to kill myself, I want to run away to Brooklyn and hang out with the hipsters. Or I often think about maybe becoming John's neighbor in Costa Rica, or like going to live in Ecuador, where I started doing a vision quest last year. Sometimes I want to run away, but I don't want to. But I want to live. It's given me this sort of like whole new look on what's going forward, and that sort of like connects to the work I'm doing in my memoir, which is all about like how do you open up your life when everybody around you is closing it.
Amazing story.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Don't be shy. I'm pretty open. All right. So Faisal, you said you needed to check out real quick, right? So why don't we start with him? So let me get down to my notes. Or do you say, is it Faisal or Faisal? I apologize if I didn't get it right.
Faisal.
Okay, Faisal. Okay. Oh, here you are. So Faisal has been in the plant medicine world for about 9 years. Excuse me. And over the time, he has gathered lots of experiences dealing with his own wounds first, and then helping others with integration. So Faisal plans to share a story about his first ceremony with Aya. It connected him with his inner child, and from there, he went on a wild ride of connecting with his parents and other family members in different ceremonies. So without further ado, Faisal.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. And first of all, Jonathan, thank you for creating this online community where we can safely share and inspire others. And thank you, Bob. That was an awesome story, and thank you for sharing that with everyone. So to share my story, I would give it. I think it will be a really good idea to give it a context of how and why it started. So for that, I'll take you back 9 years ago, where after running many businesses of my own and working for other people, I simply lost my mojo in life, and I was looking for answers. I was looking for answers in my relationship with my wife and with my colleagues and workers and all that. And it wasn't there, like the spark was not there. I had lost it. So then I find myself in a room full of 12 other strangers, and I'm doing a 1 year long public speaking course. And that was the very first day. And our mentor asked each and every one of us to go in front of everyone and share something from our past, something which was shameful, something which we did to someone or something happened to us. And when I'm there in front of everyone, I'm just frozen, just like this deer in the headlights. And then suddenly I was taken back to when I was 5 year old, and I just started sharing what happened when I was 5 year old. So imagine this little boy sitting in a classroom, and there's a lunch break, and when everybody left the room and he's about to leave, these three other boys, school bullies, older boys, they walk in, close the doors and windows, and this little boy doesn't know what's going on. He's just 5 year old, and the next thing he sees is they just start taking his clothes off and they start raping him basically. And he didn't know, this 5 year old. No 5 year old knows what's going on, like these type of things when they happen. So these three boys left laughing at him because for them it was just fun. It was just another thing they did. But for this boy, it was very, very traumatic. He was still trying to figure out what happened. So he gathers his clothes and leaves the classroom, never told anyone, not the teachers, went home, never told his parents. The reason was he didn't know which place was safe for him. If he tells this to anyone in school, these boys will probably come back because they were bigger and they were bullies of the school. And at home, because of the dynamics in his home, it wasn't safe to share things, and things were kind of hush hush, and there was some abuse going on too. So he never told that incident to anyone. And 35 years went by, he got married, and now that day he was standing in front of all these other colleagues, all the strangers, and that was the first day everything came out. And I was shocked personally, like how I could tell that incident, the incident which I never told to anyone, the thing which happened to me, the thing which made me introvert and looking for safety all my school years. And everybody else was also shocked, but at the same time inspired. And for me personally, there was a big burden taken off of my shoulders, and I was like, wow, why didn't I share that, my trauma, my wound, many years before? I did not have to suffer all these years. I thought it was my shame, but it wasn't in reality. And that day I went back home and I gathered my daughters. They were still young at that time, probably 6 or 7 year old, and my wife. And I was like, this is really important. I need to share this with you. And I shared this story first time, this incident, with my wife and my daughters. And again, that gave me some more liberation, some more freedom, and also inspired my daughters and my wife. Like she could see a husband who was coming out and who was sharing something very, very, personal. And daughters could also see that their father can speak up, and it's okay to share things like that. And that gave them freedom to be open with us. So things went on, and I was working with my mentor at that time after finishing my public speaking course. And he told me one day, he said, if you're looking for abundance, if you're looking for more money, more relationships, more meaningful relationships, there's one person who has the keys to your abundance. And I'm like, tell me who that person is. I'll go and get the keys, even if I have to pay that person. And he's like, no, you don't have to go too far. That person is inside you. And I'm like, wait a minute, who are you talking about? He said, that is your inner child. That 5-year-old boy is still there. He's still longing for validation, for love and compassion. And he is still scared there. So you need to go back and connect with him. And that's how I started working with my inner child. And somehow, again, when the student is ready, Aya shows up. And somehow, somewhere I got connected with someone who said, okay, why don't you do Aya? And I had never done any psychedelics before. And I'm like, okay. I couldn't even spell ayahuasca, so here I am on Google and I'm checking it out. I'm like, wow, this sounds very intriguing. This is way better than hypnotherapy and telepathy and all the other things which I've been doing. Like, this is the real deal. Let's do it. And again, where I am in Vancouver, there were not many opportunities at that time. But again, universe brought me the person, and that was like, I was searching on Monday. And somehow on Friday, I got to know this person is doing a ceremony, and this person does like every 3 to 4 months after, like that's the gap after which they do the ceremonies. I'm like, okay, this is perfect. So that was the first time I sat with Mother Aya. That was that Friday, and guess what? That first ceremony, my intention was to connect with my inner child and see what was going on, see what actually happened that day in the school. And I delivered. So here I am. I'm in the ceremony, first time. I see all the fireworks and everything, and I'm really excited. Man, this is really good stuff. Like, I have never seen this thing before, all the rainbow serpents and jaguars and all kind of stuff is coming. And I'm like, wow, this is beautiful. And then suddenly this little boy shows up, a 5-year-old boy. That was my intention. The boy shows up. And usually that's what happens when all the show is gone, all the fireworks, you get into the real deal. This is how Mama Aya works. And he shows up and I'm like, so who are you? And he's like, I'm Faisal. I'm like, okay. So he says, what do you want me to do? And I'm like, take me to that incident and show me what happened. I want to feel it. And he's like, are you sure? I'm like, I'm sure. It's like, it's going to be painful. I'm like, no, don't worry. Let's go. So the next thing I know, he grabs my hand and we jump into which looks like a water park ride, where there's a huge round thing, like a pipe, it goes down. And at the end, you jump into the water. But this tube is filled with little beautiful different colors balls, like a ball pit for kids. So we jump into that and we're going up and down and it's beautiful. I don't know for how long, because as you guys know, in the ceremony, there's no time. So I don't know for how long I was going through that. It was really cool. I was enjoying it. And suddenly we both dropped into what looked and seemed like a dungeon, like really, really black. I couldn't see anything. And it felt like sludge. It smelled foul. And it was really yucky. And there is my little 5-year-old boy, and he's looking at me, and I'm like, what the heck is this? Where are we? And he looked into my eyes and he said, didn't you want to feel what I felt 5 years ago? When I was 5, he said, this is what it felt like. This is what it smelled like. And this is how I felt. It was dark. And I was helpless. I was scared. And this is exactly what happened. And I have been living in this place for all these years, 35 plus years, and I've been waiting for you to come and rescue me. And by now I'm like crying. I'm like, holy shit, this is the real deal. Like when people talk about inner child, and when they say your inner child carries all your wounds and you need to work with that inner child because that inner child has everything you need. And at that time, my mentor's voice came in, and I understood at that point when he said that little boy has the keys to your abundance. I was like, wow, man, that's what it means. And I also found that it's going to be an uphill battle. It's not going to be that easy to get out of that dungeon and take my little boy with me. It's not going to be easy. But I'm glad I did that ceremony. And from that ceremony, like my life changed. I found the really like real meaning. I rediscovered my mojo in life. I'm like, okay, this is it. I need to work with him more. And after that, over years, it's been like 7 years actually working with the plant medicine. So I got into all different kinds of psychedelics, wanted to feel all the different energies, wanted to feel and see why my parents and my people who were taking care of me, they reacted the way they did, why there was abuse and all that kind of stuff. And with different plant medicines, I was able to go back and I don't know if you guys know, but when you are in that space and when you have taken the plant medicine, a place comes where you can shape shift. So I was able to go into my parents' bodies at the same time when I'm sitting in front of me and I'm in their body and I'm looking from their eyes to facile. So I was able to go inside and figure out why they were behaving that way. I found that no parents mean bad things to their kids. I found because of their own wounds from their own childhood and what was going on between them two, they were looking for validation and compassion and love, which they couldn't. So they had a lot of frustration, anger, and whatnot. And that would come out towards us, towards me and my siblings. In their heart, they were good people. They still are good people. They just didn't know how to go about it, how to give love and how to receive love. That also helped me to go into my daughter's bodies and my wife's body and look from their eyes what they want from a father, what they want from a husband, what they want from this vessel, to feel from their hearts. It was totally life-changing. So I used to go into these journeys and figure out how universe works, how relationships work, how our inner child is connected to us, and where we lose our mojo and how we can get back to that. And plant medicine, because of plant medicine, I was able to see so many insights which I could never read in any book or no mentor could tell me. And I'm really, really thankful for that. And eventually what happened was working with plant medicine. One day I'm in Peru working with my master and I'm still asking for my purpose. I'm like, what the heck is going on? I have done all these ceremonies. I have inspired other people and I've helped my clients. Like, what is next thing? Like, what can I do next? And that's where, to make a long story short, we were given the vision of our retreat center in Costa Rica. I think you're in Costa Rica, Jonathan, right? So that's how it came up, and the universe was like, okay, you have done work on yourself, on your family, and with other people, but now you got to take it on a bigger level. And I'm like, what the heck am I going to do? You know, build the center, and what am I going to do? And they're like, don't worry about it. Just do your thing. This is your higher self's purpose, and this is the vision. You need to follow that, and that's what we did. My wife and I, we created that. And that's where we started taking people there. And also with my work, I do one-on-one and group in integration, but also started taking people to Costa Rica, in a beautiful country, in beautiful jungle-like setting, and, you know, help them out. So that's what's been my story. I know there are, like, I can tell thousands of different other stories from my own ceremonies, from people I have helped, but people I have inspired and guided. It is such a beautiful place to get involved with plant medicine. And if you are watching and if you have not been involved in plant medicine, don't be shy, get in there. That is one of the best ways to get connected with yourself. I know people can do meditate and they can take 10 or 20 years to reach the top of the Mount Everest, but with plant medicine, what I have noticed is you go there like in 20 minutes, you know, you can see the top, you can see the world from the top in 20 minutes, so why not? And one more thing before I close, what I believe now is working with different shamans and helping other people. A lot of people think plant medicine is a lot of fun and show, and they start taking it, let's say, every other weekend. It becomes an addiction. Yes, plant medicine can also become an addiction. Depends what you're looking for. So there are a lot of people who get into it, but the problem is they do not implement what they get from the plant medicine, whichever medicine they're working with. And that's where it becomes their habit. They think, okay, I saw something beautiful last weekend, I'm gonna get it again on the next weekend. And that's how it keeps going on and on and on. That's when I became a very vocal about integration. So if you're doing plant medicine, please spend some time, find someone, so you can do integration. Because if you do not do integration, then again, like I said, plant medicine is just another addiction. This is just another 10 cups of coffee taking every day, or any other type of addictions you may have. So please do that. And at the end, again, I would like to thank all of you who are on the panel today, Jonathan, Bob, and everybody else. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. And if you have any questions, reach out to me. Anything else you want to say, Jonathan, or if there are any questions?
Okay. Well, thank you, Faisal. Yeah, so anyone that wants to ask questions, please do. You touched on one interesting thing. For John and I were talking about this the other day, where medicine, and actually I alluded to it in my story as well, like medicine is a practice, and that practice includes being with the lessons that you learn. I was actually just talking to a friend the other day who's been doing weekly mushroom sessions in big amounts, like 7 grams. And she was saying how, you know, I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. And I said to her, well, maybe you should space out the time between doses and actually apply the lessons that you're learning. And what happened to me early in 2018, I went on a crazy medicine tear, and I was drinking medicine every month. And my 3rd month in, grandmother said to me, come back to me with a different question, because I've already told you what you need. Go away. Don't bother. He said, you know what you need to know. Don't bother me anymore.
I totally agree with you, Bob. It happened to me too. I think I had done by that night, I had done like maybe 40 ayahs, and I was doing it by myself too, like every other weekend. So I'm in there in that space, and I'm asking questions. There was some question I asked, and I'm not getting any answers. Like, I'm not even seeing the show for the last few ceremonies now. No fireworks, nothing. And I'm like, this is getting boring. What's going on? And I'm taking the same medicine. And that night, Aya came, her spirit, and I could see her face. She was angry. I'm like, whoa, what did I do? And she's like, what have you done for the last, let's say, 40 ceremonies? We have given you so many insights. Have you implemented all those? And of course I didn't. I probably implemented 2 or 3 things, you know. And she's like, no, you're not getting anything else. Go back and implement those things and then come back. And after that, I stopped doing like every other weekend. Maybe I did after 6 months. And I found out that was just enough, because even in one ceremony, you can get enough stuff which you can keep working with for years. And that's how it kind of changed for me.
Yeah. Brilliant. Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
I just want to comment, like people on Facebook are really touched by your story, Faisal. Ruthie is saying, wow, your story is giving such guidance. We have Verdit saying, thank you for sharing your story. It touched my heart. Jason, thank you, Faisal, for sharing such a personal story with us and for sharing the love and light with others. God bless your journey. So people are very touched by it, and really thank you so much for sharing it.
Thank you.
On a note, I heard your name a while ago, and I didn't know who you are, and now I'm meeting you. And I heard you have a space in north of Costa Rica. So
Yes.
and I
Yes,
think a
indeed.
mutual friend, Gino.
Yes, Gino. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, yeah. I was just gonna say, actually, mention him. Actually, I was interviewing him about a month ago, and we were talking about. The question was, what are the visions in ayahuasca? And he's, as you know, he's a pretty straightforward guy, and I'm like that too, and so that's why we had a really good conversation. And he was like, "Let me tell you, Fez, the visions." He said, "Visions in ayahuasca are bullshit." These are his words. Like 80% of the visions are bullshit. What you get and what you need to focus upon is the insights. Don't worry about the show, because show is temporary, and that's mostly what we understand now is construct of our whatever is in our coconut right here. So that's what we're going to see. But he said after the visions are gone, after an hour or whatever time, that's the time when you need to pay attention. So don't worry, but don't go for the visions. That's not what you're going for. And that's why the people who go for visions, they get addicted, because those visions are addiction.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't. Sorry, I almost never have visions. It always goes inward, and I'm waiting for the show. And then the other thing that people talk a lot about that I haven't figured out is ego death. They go, "I want ego death." I go, "What the hell is that?" So as far for however much of that medicine I've ever taken, I've always known that I'm me. Like the lines blur between me and all these other things, but it doesn't.
Well, real quick about the ego, if I may. I remember one goal or one intention in one of my ceremonies was to kill my ego. So I go in, I'm with Aya, and suddenly I see this person in front of me in dark, and something tells me this is my ego, and I have a gun in my hand, of course, in the ceremony, so not real. So I'm pointing out to this person in front of me, who's not facing me, and I'm about to shoot, and this person just faces me now. And to my surprise, that is me. And this person is smiling. My version of me is smiling, which is also my ego. And it's like, you can't kill me. You cannot live without me. And I was ready to kill him. And he's like, no, because without you, you are nothing. You are who you are because of me. And that's when I learned that actually there is no ego death. You cannot survive with ego. What we need to do is, the goal is to work with the ego, not against ego. Work with the ego, make connection with the ego, and use ego's knowledge for good. Because ego is good, because of ego we are who we are. If there was no ego, we won't be here. So that's what I learned that day, and it was pretty interesting afterwards, like how to work with your ego. You can use it to your benefit, actually. So there is no ego death. There is ego friendship, if I may. That could be the word. For me, that is the word.
Yeah,
that's what I learned.
It's making allies. It's sort of like the Buddha inviting Mara to tea, right? You don't fight Mara, you love Mara, and make friends with him.
Totally awesome.
All right. Well, thank you, Faisal. That was wonderful. So
thank you. Well, real quick, I would say goodbye. I have to go. I have to run. I have a client. So thank you very much. And I'll come back. And of course, I'll watch the whole thing. I would love to hear everybody else's story and see where this thing goes. And all the best to you, Bob and Jonathan. And again, thank you for creating this beautiful community.
Yeah. If you want, Faisal, just before you go, put your contact info in the chat, and anybody else. So if people want to get connected into Facebook, sure. Instagram, emails, whatever. So that way we can kind of build out our network better. Thank you so much.
I'll put that in. Thank you very much again.
Brilliant.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Randy wants to raise his hand.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, this is more of a kind of an open-ended question, triggered by something that Faisal said, but it's for anybody. He had mentioned he said, like, don't be shy, jump in to the plant medicines or whatever. So there's the idea that plant medicines can heal you, can help you with whatever you've got going on. But there's also the idea to to be in a relatively good place before you use the plant medicines. So sometimes it seems like people get too reckless because they're not in a good place to begin with at the whole set and setting. But then on the other hand, you might need to take them in the first place to get into a good place. So I just wanted to bring up that question.
So sorry, what is the question, real quick?
Sorry, what did you say?
What is the question?
The question is, there's two ideas that are probably compatible. One idea is to take plant medicines to get into a good place to heal. And then there's also the idea that you need to be in a good place to some extent to begin with before you do the plant medicines because of the set aspect of set and setting. So, yeah.
Of course, yeah, no, that's totally right. You're totally right. And what I have seen over the years is, what I understand now is, it's better to get someone ready who is going to embark on this plant medicine journey before you open the Pandora box or the can of worms. It's better to prepare that person either through psychology, through meditation, through breathing exercises, because those are really, really important when you are in. People don't understand sometimes. You have to prepare yourself physically too, not only mentally. So that's where the deep breathing and things like that. And if somebody is, or if they have a lot of trauma, if they have a lot of wounds, before they jump into like full-on ceremony, I always recommend microdosing. And there's a lot of talk about microdosing nowadays. Instead of taking a full dose and then getting scared and never touch the medicine again, there's a really good, it can really help if that person starts with microdosing. Even you were talking about, Bob, about mushrooms. Mushrooms are, I say, it's a really good gateway to getting into the master plants like Wachuma and Aya. So working with that a little bit and getting connected with your wounds, trying to understand why I'm getting angry, what is my trigger. So once you know those things, okay, they're coming from my childhood, then you're prepared to open the can of worms, and then you're like, okay, it doesn't matter what happens now, then you can get in that. So that was a really good question. I think it has validity that there are some people who should not jump into a full-on ceremony for 12 hours. It would be better for them to take something small, something little,
Yeah.
or start with half an hour or 1 hour session and then go full on.
Right. Yeah, it's funny you say that, because when at that same conference, I heard about ayahuasca too, and people did, the nicer people said, well, ayahuasca finds you when you're ready. And it took me about 3 years of first having that big mushroom trip and then not having access. So I had to grow my own. So then I microdosed for almost 2 years. And it was as I kind of like mined that for what it was worth, then grandmother appeared. And there it was. And it sort of like opened up this whole big thing that I don't think that I would have been able to deal with if someone had taken mercy on me back in 2014 and said, yeah, we're going to an ayahuasca ceremony tonight. Want to come? All right, so let's move on. So we're going to, next up is going to be, Faisal, thank you so much. It was brilliant, great, touching story. Yeah, just thank you. Much love. All right, let's see. So next up is going to be Mayana Agueda. She's done over 300 ayahuasca sessions, most of them in long retreats in Peru, in the Andalusia Mountains and by the beach, mostly on her own. She has a university degree in diet and nutrition and a diploma in acupuncture. She actually wrote a whole lot more stuff, but I figured I'd encapsulate that down a little bit and let her share her story and those things that are relevant from what she wrote to me. So Mayana, it is now your turn. Thank you so much for coming. I'm really touched that you would do it.
This thing is not really, because I normally have like a tape in the thing. So maybe the camera is not okay. I don't know if you can see me properly. Okay.
We can see
Hello
you.
everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me. thank you for everyone that is listening to us. It is a pleasure from my heart to your heart. Yes, that's how we are here for. Yeah. So, the introduction. When the first medicine I took, it was an ayahuasca. It was bufalvarius, and it was something that opens up, something that I couldn't even at that time integrate. This whole program of something about something. Yes, the total silence, the total unity, feeling the wholeness and feeling the nothingness at the same time. And it was so profound that after that I wanted to get more, I wanted to know more about all the medicines, the ancestral medicines. So I started investigating about ayahuasca more. I tried a few things, but I haven't really got into it because I was more like doing meditation, visualization, that type, yes. And doing other kinds of work. I never done any work with the medicines until I encountered the UFO. And synchronistically, I took my first ayahuasca on my birthday. And that first day, the ayahuasca asked me, do you want to burn? Do you want to burn? And I was saying, what are you saying? Do you really want to burn? Because when you were born last time, you didn't want to come out from the mothers. Now you have the opportunity. So before that, the ayahuasca showed me that I was in this place, I was dark, and I didn't know. I completely didn't know what I was doing there. Really, really, really scared. And also I had lots of rage because I couldn't understand it. So then when it was asked 3 times, and the third time I decided, okay, let's try. And I saw myself burning again. And the experience, wow, it was so magnificent. How I start breathing, breathing proper life. Yes, that retreat I did. It was very confronting as well because on other following nights I went down and I started seeing other things. But that first night was, I knew exactly that night, this is my path. This is my path. So I start doing every 6 weeks going to ayahuasca, the 3 months. And after that, I start going to training to be ayahuasca facilitator and integrator, and we start connecting with other medicines like Cambo as well, which I love, and medicine. And and I left that journey of being on the group ceremonies once I realized I could start taking ayahuasca on my own. I felt completely ready for it. I felt the call. Ayahuasca told me that my mission at the time, it was just taking ayahuasca. And so I started doing it like every 3 days, every 4 days I was taking it on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I was start seeing how everything was changing in myself. And all the how I started connecting with my energetic body. I felt all the meridians, the chakras, how the medicine travels through the nervous system up the back. And it was getting my head really, really hot. I saw this cube, like this labyrinth where we are all together. You know, we keep thinking that we are lost and we are on our own because we come with a personal ego program, the separation program that we decided to live, to come here and experience ourselves through separation. Even though we know that we are not separated, that we are one. And so I've been going through this labyrinth, this theme park where this thing is showing myself uh, things about myself that I didn't want to accept, that it was in the unconscious. It's like When we take ayahuasca, the bell lifts up, so we can communicate it from the unconsciousness to the consciousness. So it's the communication there, and everything is expanded. We can see much more, and we understand it straight away. It's very easy to forget things when we are in the peak of ayahuasca, because we get so much information at one point when we start traveling through the fractals, yes, and that is like, okay, I try to be here, I try to be here, presence. That's why I keep telling myself, you need to be present. Don't, if you start getting yourself lost, that's when the images that Faisal was saying, that they are bullshit. Some of them are really funny. The whole journey, it keeps developing itself. And I start, after I got connected with my own energetic bodies, I start getting connecting with the planes of resistance, the different planes of resistance. Because I did really long retreats. At the beginning, I was taking it every 6 weeks. Then I started taking it every week. And then when I went to Peru, I was told by these grandmother's birds, I need to go to Peru. So I followed it. I got unpaid leave from my job, and I flew to Peru, and I did that was my first trip there. I really love it. It's beautiful place. And from there, from the first longer one, let's say the retreat, the one I did was 18 days of ayahuasca altogether. And it was, I could feel that every day was getting, the next day was, I was getting to another level, another level, another level. So it's like in this labyrinth, or this cube, as I like to say, we have doors. And once the door that is the door is closed, and there's also traps. If we get into ourselves into the traps, then we can stay in that room for much longer. But if we get close and we start working, everyday life with them and integrating with them, uh, forgiving is so important. Resolving all these confrontations, accepting it, you know, and then let them go. It's like you start getting all the weight we've been carrying, with ourselves. As we start going through the ayahuasca and being able to resolve them, we let them go. If they don't come up much more, well, they can come back to us as a just to see if you already have learned the lesson. But if you have learned the lesson, they know you just go to another level. So it's been, yes, like from the first time that I went to the astral plane, and I saw that everything is in my heart, because the astral plane is in here. Um, how we are, how beautiful we are, dear humans. How beautiful is that plane where we are working harmoniously, and really enjoying, and being creative, singing, dancing. It's really, really beautiful. So we get all connected. All I call it, the people in there, I call them the Kumaras. Yes. And after that, I started traveling through the fractals, and I got to the Sacramento plane that is full of really different sleep levels. And I start getting to know the magic. That's where we do the magic, the wizards, as I call it. And from there, we do lots of work, even though we don't here we don't have the tools to be there all the time. But with ayahuasca, we still can do lots of work also from the Sacramento plane, and bring fractals of love, of purity, of forgiveness for people who are suffering, within themselves. They still haven't comprehended this whole game. Why we came here, because we decided, all of us, to come here. and the proposal that it comes is really enjoy as much as we can, and don't get so much. We get ourselves limited just when the little mind start telling you and try to get you into the bad situation. No, we are creators. We always are being creators, and we can create the best thing for ourselves. And every time that something happens to us, and we are at the beginning receiving like, oh, what a bad experience. That bad experience is not bad at all. It's always a school. So here in the school of life, we keep learning lots and lots and lots. And it's just been the whole journey really beautiful. In the Sacramento plane is lots of fun, it's lots of joy as well, and we really enjoy being the wizards. And then in the casual plane, that's the I call it the profound mind. In the profound mind, I've seen these dragons, and from there, all the information how this universe, is parallel universe, is the universe of the dimensions and is the universe of the planes. And how the whole universe as we came to, at the bottom, at the bottom, at the bottom, and how we are making our way back home to the causal plane, to the point of the circle. Let's imagine the circle and the point there. And in the journey to the, with the dragons, seeing how everything is being sent from the profound mind to the supplemental plane, from the supplemental plane to the astral plane, from the astral plane to here, and how we experience the whole story. Yes, and how we can connect with it as we are taking ayahuasca or other medicines. Yes, that we remember. We always remember. As soon as we take it and we get in there, it's like, oh, of course, of course, of course, of course. Is the proposal always is when we wake up the following day, we live with that energy all day long, and try to, the ayahuasca is light and love. We are light of love. So we can be light of love to the people who surround us all the time. Uh, so it's been really, it is just a beautiful journey full of joy and lots of love, lots of comprehensions. Yes, it's like I can see the chicks uh, everywhere. Yes, it's like when we are becoming the conscious observer of all the situations that keep happening around us or with whatever is happening in the world. Uh, we can see the movements, yes, the movements, how moving out. And another big vision that I keep seeing is like here, we look like, we feel like we are very little, like that we are the puppets, but in reality, we are the puppeteers, the ones who really do all the, move all the things. Yeah. So anything that happens to you is, remember that it's you. It's always you. It's always you. Nothing is in the stereo. That's what ayahuasca has shown me as well. Everything is inside you. You know. So it has been really, really amazing. And as I have gone through all these sessions of ayahuasca and been learning lots about it, I start developing. It was keeping developing this initiative school that it connects the complex mind, body, and spirit, because we are not just the person either. We are much more than that, and integrating as well in ayahuasca the following day with the movements. Let the body to let out all the memories that are also in there that are really good with this beautiful music we have, and being in contact in nature, uh, contact with the four elements, with the birds, with the trees, with the sounds of nature, with the rivers, with the sea, yeah. And keep trying to understand the ego personal program, and, uh, and then transcend it. once it's transcended, we can go home, but we do it, we go together. No one is going to go on their own, we are all going together. We are all going together. So it's been many millions of years that we've been doing this. And now we have a great opportunity for all of us to do it together. So keep working.
Thank you. That's a wonderful story, Mayana. Does anyone have any questions? So we're at about 12:30 right now. So we're scheduled to go till 2. As long as we can keep the room, as it were, we can keep on going because we have two more people who want to speak. So feel free to ask questions.
Bob, we are open.
Okay, cool. So we can keep on going.
Yeah. Mayana, thank
Excellent.
you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge.
Sorry?
Thank you for sharing your knowledge.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
I need to go because I got a lot
helpful.
of meeting with the medicine women now. So it's been a pleasure being with you guys. Lots of love. Lots of love.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Let's see where we. So next, we have Navi. So Navi Grewal has been working in the cannabis industry for almost 10 years in Toronto, and originally obtained his medical cannabis license back in 2007 for migraines. He plans to share a story about his second ever ayahuasca ceremony, which was hosted by a Reiki master and shaman. However, the shaman, it turns out, wasn't a real shaman, and the Reiki master was into the dark arts. So this should be interesting. So Navi, you're up. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Mike, maybe you could bring the mic a little closer. You're a little faint.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. So this story took place back in 2014. I had done ayahuasca once before, but it was somebody had made it and it didn't turn out to be made properly. So this second ceremony, I came in, I didn't really follow the diet properly as I did the first ceremony. I kind of had a bit of an ego. I didn't think that nothing amazing was going to happen to me. And it was held in Ontario in Canada in someone's house, at the Reiki master's house. And she gave all of us Reiki. She did all the cleansing. And we were told that once the ceremony starts, don't talk to anybody. If you need any help, just talk to the Reiki master or talk to the shaman. Other than that, just keep things to yourself. And the lights were dim and whatnot. And when I went up to take my cup, the guy actually gave me a double dose because I told him that I had done it before and it didn't really do anything, which kind of added to everything. So I did my dose. It was me, 7 ladies, 2 guys, the Reiki master, and the shaman. So a very small group in this house. I found a spot on the couch. I put a blanket around me, and once I started, I was just kind of like in the zone, kind of meditating, and then I kind of started. After a while, I started to hear a really, really scary sound, and it was like terrifying me. So I would open my eyes and look around the room, and everyone was at peace except me. So I was wondering, like, why couldn't they hear what I'm hearing? And then eventually I realized what I was hearing is demonic laughter. This thing or this voice kept laughing louder and louder and louder and louder. I'm like, holy shit, I'm gonna have an anxiety attack. I don't know what to do. I was freaking out. I'm like, maybe I should talk to the Reiki master or the shaman. And as I went to get up to talk to them, it kind of held me down. And it said, nobody can help you where you are. The shaman can't help you or the Reiki master. Nobody can help you. Where you're going, you are fucked. And I started to get even panic even more because now I'm like, oh my God, I can't move. I can't see anything. I'm kind of paralyzed with fear. And then eventually there was a secondary sound that started to overtake the demonic laughter. And this sound was even more scarier for me because the demonic laughter, I could put it in a category. I knew what it was, but this sound, I had no idea what it was. And it was this loud roaring kind of sound. And eventually it overtook the laughter sound. And at this point, my eyes were getting really, really, really tired. And I didn't want to close my eyes because I knew if I closed my eyes, something bad would happen to me. So I fought with everything I could to keep my eyes open. And my eyes, they felt like lead curtains. They felt heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier. And finally, there came a point where I had no other choice. I had to give in. So I finally shut my eyes. And then I shut my eyes. And then I realized that that noise was, when I had shut my eyes, I had woken in a different dimension, and I saw my soul in a rocket ship. And that noise was the engine of the rocket ship, and then it took off at the speed of light. So now I'm whizzing past these galaxies at the speed of light, and I'm going so fast, and my body is shaking, and I have no idea, like, how to drive this ship or where I'm going. I'm kind of freaking out. And at this point, I have no idea I'm on a couch or in someone's house. This is my total reality. And then I tell myself, oh my God, just calm down. You're gonna have an anxiety attack. And then the word anxiety comes out of my mouth in white writing. And as it comes out, as it's about to leave the ship, it hits the glass and it bounces back. It goes doot, 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 doot. And the faster it hits the glass, the faster it goes. And the faster it goes, the more anxiety I get. Eventually, it's like bouncing off the ship so fast, and my heart is beating so fast. And at this point, I think that I'm gonna die of a heart attack. So I let go of the controls of the spaceship, and I grab my heart because I'm thinking I'm gonna die of a heart attack. And then next thing I know, I crash land in an alien planet. Now, like, I have no idea where I am. The spaceship is destroyed. I'm bleeding on the floor. These beings are all around me, and they're like, oh my God, there's an alien. So they called me the alien. So they all scatter around me. They're all fighting over me, fighting over my body, over my corpse. I'm trying to plead with them. I'm like, come on, guys, good beings only. They start laughing at me, and they're like, you're on our planet, you're our property. We can do anything we want with you. There were some beings that were able to download my memories. There were some beings that were able to kind of figure out how my body works. At this point, it feels like I'm in hell because these beings are attacking me. They're pulling on me. And I'm screaming from at the top of my lungs, like, for anyone to help me, and no one can seem to help me. And then this power bar kind of appears, almost like the type that you see in a video game. And the more they grab me, and the more they hurt me, the power bar keeps going down. And eventually there's like 1 bar left. And at this point, I'm like, my intention was love. That's all I ever really wanted. I'm gonna die. How are my parents gonna have my funeral if they can't find my body? And then I'm like, thanks, I'm like, F you, God, thank you, now I'm gonna die, thanks for everything. And as it hits 0, I'm about to die, this beam of white light comes through this cave, down through my crown chakra, and lifts me off the ground. And then these beings, all these beings that were attacking me, they get scared and they scatter all around me. And then I finally realized that this white light was I guess it was the universal love, or God, or whatever you want to call it. So it starts to erase all the beings and everything around me, and I ascend, I guess, into the heavens or into the source. And then I'm still mad at it. So I say, it took you this long to save me, like the bottom of the night, 3 balls, 2 strikes. You couldn't have saved me 10 minutes earlier. And then it didn't say anything. And then without saying anything, it like let me know that it wanted to take away my memories. It wanted, and so I was pleading with it. I'm like, my family, my friends, this is all I have in this world. If you take this away, I don't have anything else. And then eventually I gave in. I'm like, fine, if you want it, you can have it. The next thing I know, I awoke and I'm like, wow, I'm a human being. So I was analyzing my own body. I'm like, wow, I'm a human being. I'm a male. I was looking at everything. It was as if I'm living in a dream right now, and I had just woken up. And then it started to disintegrate everything till it was the size of an atom. And then even that, it started to even strip away further and further with such speed and such clarity. So, like by proton, by neuron, just faster and faster. Eventually, there was nothing left, and then it kind of told me that love bonds everything in the universe. And then I cried, the most happiest cry. And then I wondered how I cried. I cried because I didn't have a body. And then after that, I was transported into another dimension, and the spirit of ayahuasca told me that now that I've been humbled, it can teach me lessons. And then it brought me the spirit of every single drug that I had done that year. So I met the spirit of alcohol, the spirit of cannabis, the spirit of mushrooms, LSD. It told me that the MDMA that I was using is a fake friend, and that it takes more for me than it gives you. And it warned me that if I abuse this in the future, that it would punish me in my next Aya ceremony. I was given the ability to see 20 years in the future, and I turned that down for whatever reason at the time. I could ask any question I wanted to in the universe, and it would give me an answer. The only thing is I wouldn't be able to remember what I asked or what the answer was. And I also, at this point, I finally realized that I was on the couch. So I was finally aware of my surroundings, of what was going on. And it also gave me the ability of telepathy. So anybody I wanted to talk to in a household, I would just think about them, and within a minute, at this point in time, people are finally talking about their Aya ceremonies. Me, it just took longer. I guess I was out of it for like a few hours. And anyone that I wanted to talk to in my mind, they would come to me within a minute, telling me that they were told by Aya to talk to me. And this is all going on, and I can finally feel that the medicine is leaving me. And so ayahuasca asked me, do you have any last questions before we leave your body? And at this point, I'm like, I'm no longer seeing anything. Everything's back to normal. I look around the room and I'm like, oh, there's a lot of pretty girls here. And I actually came to the ceremony. I wanted to ask ayahuasca if I have a chance of hooking up with her. So I'm like, what are the odds of me hooking up with any of the girls in this room? And the spirit of ayahuasca started laughing, and they're like, we can't tell you that, because it's not from the heart. But if you want to know from the heart long term, we can tell you that. And I'm like, sure, why not? And then at this point, every woman in the room, they had a percentage on their chest. So if this was in March of 2014, I could look around. Some are 40%, some are 60%, some are whatever. And then it's really strange. And then with my mind, I could even peel back the percentages like a graph. So it could show me from March to June, if it would go higher or lower. And there was this lady that was also on the couch that I didn't like her at all for whatever reason. I barely knew her, but we were a 90% match in June. And I'm like, oh, that's crazy. Like I don't like her at all. I think she's pretty mean for some reason. And later on that year, in June, we ran into each other at a festival and we fell in love. So that's my story.
Wow.
Well, thank you. That's brilliant. Many paths. I guess that sounds like a new software idea, right? So, does anyone have questions for Navi?
First, I want to say what a punchline, Navi.
Yeah.
You took us everywhere in the world, and then you really had an amazing punchline to the story. So thank you so much for your courage to share that.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, Jonathan often asks this question. Maybe I'll step on his toes with this one. But the world of wisdom is is focused on solutions, problems and solutions in the world. So, is there a takeaway that you have from this experience that led to a concrete solution for something that you were working on?
It's kind of funny. The amount of anxiety that it gave me on this ayahuasca trip it actually got me over my anxiety in general. So after that session, my anxiety was super low for the rest of my life. It's like before it was at times it could cripple me at times, and then afterward it just kind of like is gone. Wow. It gave me so much. It helped me overcome the anxiety by giving me so much at once. It's like if you're scared of snakes, you toss someone into a tub full of snakes, and the snakes don't kill them, right? Then eventually you won't be scared anymore.
Yeah, you call it exposure therapy.
That's right. So, any more questions? We good? All right. So, Alejandro Martinez, you made me nervous, friend. I wasn't sure if you were coming. I was trying to figure out how we were going to fill that last slot on the fly. But thank you so much for offering to do it. Thank you for persisting with it and getting here when you could. I really appreciate that. So Alejandro is another one who wrote a whole lot about who he is and all of the amazing things he does. I'm going to kind of condense this a whole lot. He's an extraordinary fellow, well accomplished. I would be delighted to have you as a son. I'd be proud to say that's my boy. But I'm going to kind of boil it down to a few simple lines. So he's a 33-year-old researcher, geometer, industrial designer, philosopher, artist, who's originally from Tijuana, Mexico. And I'd probably throw entrepreneur in there as well, because it looks like you have a whole bunch of businesses. So he plans to share a story about his relationship with medicine and the connections between it, shamanism, and science. So this is kind of like a cool nexus of a whole lot of things, because for me, like one of the things I struggle with as coming from Western civilization and having the programming and that I have is that, what's the relationship between all the spiritual stuff and the science? And I'm kind of gradually getting to the point where there's no distinction between the two of them, but we make that distinction. So I'm really curious to hear what you have to say about that. Thank you, Alejandro. You're up.
Thanks a lot, Bob. Nice to meet you all. I'm very excited to be here. Actually, I'm very excited to connect with you. I just started to do this. I think I have like a month or so that I started to reach out to people all around the world with amazing results. And well, I have been working the past 15 years on making research on geometry, but at the same time has to do with the same research, and not only talks about science and geometry. Like it's, for me, it was a holistic and synergetic experience. So I didn't leave out all the other parts like spirituality and mysticism and shamanism. For me, it was a unified experience. So from the beginning, it grew parallel. So I started to, actually, it was like a symbiosis, like it was developed together. So when I started to experience sacred medicine for for the first time, like I was like 17 years old. I started with weed, but it came out eventually because of my friends and relationships to shrooms and to peyote and San Pedro, because it's very common here. Like also bufo, sapito, because I'm here in Sonora. It's like it's the next state from here, so it's very accessible. And so I started to make serious research. That was my focus. Like not not a experience on just sensible level, but also in an intellectual, spiritual, and scientific level. So every experience that I had, I was making research. So I started to focus on how can I prove the experience that I have with other people that are here with me and are having the same experience, but how can I prove that what I'm experiencing, it's not on my mind only, but it's really there. So little by little, I started making notes and comparing with people, experimenting with my friends. And it worked out very great. Like I can give you one of my best experiences that I had. And this was with San Pedro. So it was New Year's Eve, and I was with one of my friends, and I shared with him San Pedro, and we went to a party. So the party was just beginning. There were like two people, and we got there like at, I don't know, 9 o'clock, and we had one of the most intense experiences of our lives, because it was the both of us. So I use him to compare my experience, and not to say, oh, I'm seeing this and I'm seeing this. It was like, well, what do you see there? Explain to me, what are you seeing there? And then he started talking about the same things that I was seeing visually, and geometries and all the phenomenon that was there. So I was triangulating the information with him, and and it helped me a lot, because I discovered that well, the experience was not personal; it was a collective experience. And for example, there, one of the friends that were in the party, everyone manifested different types of geometries and energy flows. And it had to do with what were they doing, and how were they processing the information, and their own experience and level of energy growth or energy flow, or their own level of spiritual growth, maybe. But for example, one of my friends had a prisma, like a prism, that it went out of the third eye, but it was in this direction. And what I experienced is that it was like actually like a prism, like a crystal prism, because I was seeing the eyes of my friend. Like that was the thing that caught my eye, like catch my eye, because his eyes were like separated, like here. So I started going around his face, like, what is happening here? Like, what are your eyes like popping out, like separated, like. So I went around him, and I saw that when I was like looking from the side, his eyes were normal. But when I was looking from the front, his eyes started to go like this, like this. So I noticed there was a prism that was going out from here. So the sides of the prism were acting like a type of crystal mirror, you know. So they were expanding like a reflection of his size, the same in the top. So it was real, and it was the energy flow, and I can compare it to when you are going on the highway, and the heat is going coming out of the of the pavement, like the floor, and you can see the distortion, the optic distortion that the heat is it's generating uh, from the light that is coming behind it. So you see the energy going. You cannot see the energy, but you can see the distortion that the energy is it's manifesting to light. So with each experience that I was growing, and with more information and knowledge that I was gaining, my experience got more and more vivid and more defined. So I started to understand what I was looking at. We always have the background, and has like a movement, like a shade, like something that is moving on the background with all these types of medicine. And it has to do with we can see energy. That's the reason. So when you are not focusing on energy, you see with the peripheral vision, you see movement and shades. But when you focus directly on the phenomenon, you cannot see it, and it's because how the eye works. So the center part of the eye looks at defined shapes, and the peripheral part looks at motion and shades. So I started to train my eye, years training my perception, so I can see something that we are not supposed to do physically, that it's see the space between spaces. And we're focused to see physical things where our sight bounces with something physical. But what about what is here? We can focus this part, or this spot, or this spot. So if we train our eyes to see the space that doesn't have anything, eventually we're gonna start seeing what is there. And so I trained myself to do that, to do this for years, and eventually I started manifesting this in a very complex and detailed way, that I started to see energy, and I started to see subtle energy that we call the biofield. And I started to see how it flowed, and had different colors, and what people like. That same experience, there were two friends, a couple, and they were talking, and like hugging and things, and I saw the colors that were going out of the plexus, solar plexus, and how they mixed in the orbitals, and how it was like it was electromagnetic. It was like an electromagnetic field, and I saw how it combined and move around the bodies, and their bodies and their heads. So it was very detailed and vivid. So well, from there, I started noticing certain things that for me were important. At the same time, I was developing geometry, but it was like a effect, like an after effect that had to do with the same experiences that I was having. I think there's a period of 3 weeks to 1 month after you have an experience, that the information that you receive, you process, and then like a bubble that it comes down from your unconscious, starts floating up, and then boop, it pops up to your consciousness, and then you understand the experience a lot of time after the experience. So I noticed that, so I started to develop some notion of order and discipline and doses and a lot of things that had to do with something very precise, not with like in a scientific rigor, you know, not, well, I'm gonna have tomorrow a trip and next month or maybe next week or maybe, I don't know, you know. No, it was very strict. So if I made a trip today, I cannot make a trip until after a month at least. And so because actually I did it for some time and I didn't have order, and I started noticing then it's like you don't even understand what you have received and you're piling over it more and more and more. So you start entering in a state of chaos, and you can go even further to psychosis from there. So you have to have a very order way of doing this. And well, from those experiences, I started like gaining some insights of how energy was working, and I started to develop this new field of geometry that I call um, um, sustainable quantum cosmometry. It has to do with the properties that it's describing. And I'm really finding it like this because geometry actually means the measurement of Earth, but geometry is not the measurement of Earth. Geometry is the rules that define the order in the cosmos and are defined from the quantum level up to the cosmic level. So it's an additive process. It's not a subtractive process. So we had to define that starts in the quantum level and goes up and builds up to the cosmos. But also it came out from the cosmos. So it's like a science, like a duality of existence. So from there, I started noticing the same things that I was seeing in my experiences. I started to manifest it physically. And I started to see geometry like it is, dynamic, strings of energy floating and vibrating. So I know that the experience that I had shaped the way I see the world, and I was able to pick up some information from there and started to apply it to science and to understand what was happening here. And I noticed something, and it was like when answers are so obvious, you cannot see them. They're in front of you, but you cannot see. And it's like when you're looking for your cell phone and your cell phone is in your hand, or your keys and your keys are in your hand, and you don't focus in your, where are my keys? Where are my keys? Your keys are in your hand. So I think there's some fundamental answers in reality that are so in front of our faces that we cannot see them or define them. And one example that I have that in these experiences I notice is that like in the simple things on geometry, we have 2D geometries, right? So we have one-sided geometry that is a circle. We have three-sided geometry, triangle, square, pentagon, hexagon. So we are going up in a scale, right? So we have 1, 2, 1, 3, 4, 5, 6 to infinite. And then it comes all around and it comes back here. So the circle has infinite number of sides, but it also has one side. So it's a dual state. But what happened with the one that is supposed to be here? What is the two-sided geometry? It's so obvious that we cannot see it. And it's because it's a hidden geometry that the universe put there. So if we understand it, we understand something very important to the universe. So it's not so obvious, but it's so obvious. So what is the shape of the two-sided shape? It's the intersection of two circles. But it's all around us, and it's defining very important things. The intersection that it's called the basic apices, or two angle. And that shape, it's everything. And in that shape, the most important fundamental constants of mathematics are manifested, equilibrium and a lot of other properties. But where can we see it in reality? Look. Look. And also genitals, and also seeds, and also every other form that gains and transmits information. So mouth, information, food in, words out, sight. So everything that has that property is gonna manifest that shape specifically. So it's something that it's all around us. It's something very obvious, but we are blind to see it because it's so obvious. So in the same matter, I started to realize that, well, what is other things that are so obvious that we are not focusing on? So I got the idea that we were not focusing movement, and we had defined geometry like something static, something that doesn't transform, that doesn't move, that it's always there, that the cube is sitting on a table, it's sitting on the ground. But the cube is not on the ground. The cube is something abstract, and it's in a space that has one axis because it's a toroid, but it doesn't have a ground, and it's very different. So I started to understand, and well, I said, what if geometry is not what we see, and geometry actually is like a metaphor, like an always transformable state of things. It's never stable, it's always changing, and it will always transform. So I started to define a theory based on that. And I started to say, well, maybe everything is like that. And when I analyzed geometry at that perspective, I found out that the cube was not a cube. What it was a state in a string that could vibrate, and one of those states of vibration was the cube. So what is the cube? That's the question. What is the cube? If the cube is a state of a string, a transformation, one state of a complex string that has more than 50 different geometric arrangements, okay, so what is this? This is the best state of this string to achieve coherence, to achieve harmony, to achieve equilibrium. So there's the reason that we have symmetry, is because it's looking for equilibrium, and the cube is the best way of this string in particular to do that, because it's going up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and connects the end with the beginning, and the volume is the less space that it can occupy, and the energy it's so symmetric that it's stable. So if other geometries go and interact with this one, this is stable. This is not gonna be affected because of this string. And it has to do with electromagnetism, because also it's describing how electromagnetic fields work in a toroidal field. So this is energy going around, twisting, and it twists and twists because it's electromagnetic. So this has polarity. So to go from this state to this state, electromagnetic fields had to change and polarity has to change so it can be rearranged. So, but what happens if we have more than one? Well, I found out this is a very important and complex geometry, and it's based on a geometry that is called amplituedron. And the amplituedron, just some years ago, 2003, I think, in quantum physics, they described that this is one of the most important geometries that exist in quantum physics. Well, for now, because they haven't found a lot of different things that I have found. But look, this is the version of the same geometry, but in a dynamic way. And look, they're not one, they're two interacting with each other. So they can do a lot of interesting things, but the important thing is that when I began to make all this research, I have one thing in mind. From when I was little, I had a purpose on my life. I defined a purpose on my life when I was 10 years old, and my purpose was to develop new science and technology to help the humanity liberate itself from ignorance. And well, years later, this manifested. I don't think it's an accident. I don't believe in accidents. I think when you define something in your life.
The dogs at your place?
What? Excuse me?
We're hearing dog sounds.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Wait. Fuera. I'm sorry about that.
No problem.
I think when you define very clearly what you want to do with your life, you are condemned in a good way, if it was a good thing you ask. But I experienced that in my life. Every time that I try to get out of this, reality has destroyed my life.
Mm-hmm.
So has the ayahuasca kind of like helped you with your purpose and give you a deeper understanding of the work that you're doing?
Yeah. I have very different experiences with ayahuasca and other medicines that are very contrastable, but for instance, I had some experiences that are only inner experiences, not so visual and geometric, but more in the inside. I had gone places outside here. I had gone inside and being inside on the whole experience inside myself. And yeah, I think this is like it has like a very complex and profound relationship with every aspect of life, because at the same time that I was growing on science and understanding on reality and all that, I started to understand certain questions, fundamental questions, and I could start to understand certain things about how life works, and that gave me peace. And it was on certain ceremonies that I found out that, like for instance, in one of the ceremonies, I found out that everything is perfect. Reality is perfect. There are no errors on reality. The errors are on our perception. But then understanding hit me in a ceremony, and I was like meditating, like in chaos, because I was struggling with like finding answers on why is happening this in reality when I know that this can be manifested, and I was struggling with a lot of questions. And then I had a vision in my mind, and it was very clear and very simple that uh, space time is perfect, always, always. If it wasn't, reality annihilate itself instantly. So if we are having this experience right now, is because it's perfect and it doesn't need anything. It doesn't lack of anything. It's already full and perfect. So from there on, I started to address philosophically very different my reality, and and I started also gaining a lot of knowledge, philosophical knowledge, between this relationship between medicine, abstract knowledge of geometry, and the application of that to things on reality that it's creation. So everything that is being manifested, you can extract from their philosophy. You can extract from their logics that are being held on reality. So it gave me a lot of peace. So after that, I started addressing life like in a very relaxed way, because before that, I was running to a deadline. Like I have to finish this, I have to finish my work, because if I don't do this, I don't know, maybe the world is gonna end. You know, thoughts like that. But it was very wrong, because you cannot affect reality in that way. You can only participate. You can only share what you have and be part of the experience, but you cannot define the experience. That's not on our capabilities, because there's magnitudes of force that are being held on here. Like I can explain it with my arm. Look, if the universe was my arm, and from here to here is the galaxy, and from here to here the solar system, the planet, life on the planet, and I'm here like jumping like the hardest that I can, but the universe does this. So jump all you want. Time is already defined in a like in a reaction way. You know, it's not something that you can create, because it's already created. You're just experiencing it. You're just inside the jello, but you think that you're doing things, but the universe already happened. It's like the heart beating. So this is the Big Bang. This is another one. This is another, and it's beating. So in an instance, in a quantum instance of the universe, you exist and you contribute with your part. So we cannot. We are very important, because the universe is being manifested, so we can be here experiencing it, and we're in the center of the universe. That it's another thing that we are not taught, and it's real, because we have three systems that are creating us, manifesting us, and three systems that are um, um, nurturing us. And so it's atom, molecule, and cellular level, and we're the organic level, and planetary, solar system, and galactic. So we have three down, three up, and we're in the center of the universe. And so the universe it it needs us more than any other system in the reality, because we're the ones that answer back his questions, and also reshape reality, and start new conversations with the universe. So we are always co-creating the universe but we cannot change the space-time that we are in and we are being manifested. We can only contribute like if it was um like a like a theater show. So we're in the theater, and we can define which actor we want to play in the movie or in the film that it's already written, but we cannot redefine the movie. We can only uh, take our hands up and say, well, I want to be that one or this one, or want to be the good guy or the bad one, the guy in this history and this experience.
Wow. So thank you so much, Alejandro. This has been brilliant on every level. You really touch upon something that's been near and dear to me in my own explorations, which is this relationship between materialism and spirituality. And it's brilliant to see that there is no difference. It's just a question of the language that we use to express these concepts, but they're the same thing. And it's just fabulous. So we've actually gone over time by a lot. So thank you so much. It's brilliant. Thank you to Mayana, to Navi, to Faisal for sharing your stories. I want to touch on one last little thing before we kiss each other goodbye. One of the most amazing things that I've noticed in doing these storytelling sessions over the last 3 years is that I don't have to curate themes anymore. So when I first started my project, I would intentionally bring in people to talk about addiction, to talk about spirituality, to talk about all these other things, and they sort of work. But when I threw it out to the universe and just let people come to the space, I've discovered that those were the people that were meant to be there, and a bunch of themes come up that seem to track all the way through everyone's stories. And so today we talked about inner child, we talked about ego death, we talked about integration, and we also talked about this relationship between materialism and spirituality. And if you think about all the stories that we've heard, those threads there's a straight through line with all of the stories that lead us there. So it's just brilliant. And so thank you all for coming. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for being a part of this wonderful moment. Before we close out, I invited folks to leave contact information in the chat, so you're welcome to do that. If not, I would love to stay in touch with everybody. And we're building out this really amazing network of people who are interested in this work, and it would be wonderful if we kept it going further. So thank you, Jonathan, for getting connected with World of Wisdom. Thank you, World of Wisdom. Yeah, so thank you everybody for everything. Love you.
Love you, Bob. Great job, everybody. It was amazing.
So this is the